somewhere and do this to him.
Getting
that bad guy broke up with a lesbian.
Okay.
I mean, God forbid.
Not there.
That ain't his fault.
Not then.
Jesus, people.
20 years earlier.
The kids.
And we've gone off the rails. Right, Deontay? 2 NFC playoff teams from last year squaring off on Sunday. Panthers and Eagles. All eyes on Cam Newton and Carson Wentz. Despite a 3-3 start, the defending Super Bowl champs, the Eagles, they're coming off a big win. And they have seemingly found their identity, at least according to their head coach. This while the Panthers are just 3-2, coming off a loss to Washington. CC, what are you looking for in this matchup?
I think it was a great matchup. Better than the matchup you had during high school and everything.
With Jim Bianco.
Yes.
There you go. Say it again.
Carolina's defense, are they going to get back to the Carolina we've seen with Riverboat Ron, and since Cam Newton has been there, a dominant defense? You can't run. And Carson Wentz and this offense, where do they evolve to? Carson's gotten better every game. It's what we should expect with a quarterback coming off of that knee surgery. So who can grow their offense in Carson Wentz and this Carolina defense? Because I'm concerned about the Carolina defense. I'm concerned about their inconsistent play. I'm concerned that, man, there's a couple teams that did what you can never do on Carolina, and that's run the ball on them and run it between the tackles. If the Eagles are able to find some type of running game, what I believe that's part of the lack of overall consistent productivity. They don't have a consistent runner of the football, and I believe it's time to make time. It's time to give someone that identity. Who's going to be your #1 rusher for the Philadelphia Eagles to be able to relieve some of that burden from Carson Wentz? This is the type of game that you try to find that identity. I believe this is a good matchup. This is a good football game.
Listen, both these defenses are giving up about the same yards per game, almost identical. What's the difference in the production? Because the Eagles have a top 5 defense overall, and as far as points allowed, and the Panthers are barely in the top 10. The Eagles have the #1 red zone defense. The Panthers have the number 31 red zone defense.
That's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe, and it doesn't match up with the personnel the Panthers have. And it doesn't match up to their history, which is sometimes they would give up big plays, but they would strengthen in the red zone. That's been Philadelphia's MO this year. They give them a ton of big plays, but they've been excellent in the red zone. It wasn't just week 1 against Atlanta. It's been their theme throughout the year, even as they've struggled on the back end of that defense. I think one of the reasons Philadelphia's so good in the red zone is hard to exploit bad cornerback play as the field gets shorter, and easier to exploit your advantage on the defensive front as the field gets shorter. For Carolina, my big concern about Carolina this year was, are they going to be able to keep Cam upright? Amazingly, if you remove designed runs, Cam's been one of the least hit quarterbacks in football this year. So that offensive line, as banged up as it is, has done a good job protecting Cam. This is an enormous game for the Panthers. I understand Philadelphia is coming off a win. We felt like Philadelphia 10 days ago, or 8 days ago, really showed who they were against the Giants. Panthers were feeling great at 3-1. Then a bye. Then a loss where they were. They didn't come out ready to play until the 3rd quarter against Washington. If all of a sudden they fall to 3-3, you feel very different about if the Panthers are going to be able to return to the playoffs. So for both of these teams, this is one of the biggest games of the weekend.
You know, Doug Peterson came out, and I mentioned this earlier, and said that I think we're finally figuring out who we are as a team, what we're good at. I would say both of these teams have a bit of an early season identity crisis, because I think what we thought we were going to see with Cam Newton, maybe we're not exactly seeing, and we thought we were going to see with the Eagles, we weren't seeing. Who has more to figure out as far as figuring out who they are as a team?
Well, right now, I just believe that the Philadelphia offense and their inability to be able to run the ball. One thing, the reason why we give them credit is, man, they got good big people, got great defensive line, got great offensive line, but they're getting good pass protection, giving Carson Wentz ability for the passing game to flourish, but without being able to run the ball. So the effect that it doesn't have on the defense when you do try to run an RPO, because you are not and I just think that they really miss LeGarrette Blount. Like, they missed that thud and that hammer that they used to have last year. So even though you have LeGarrette Blount and you run RPOs with the other other running backs, even though they're not big as him, the overall effect it has on the defense, because they were known more as a running team last year, and I believe it opened up a lot of things in the passing game. They still miss Mike Wallace as far as a deep threat down the field. Alshon Jeffries, you can see him and Carson starting to get that connection coming back last week. I believe it's a big game for both teams, but what do the Eagles do if they're not able to build on the momentum after smashing the Giants last week? So I can make a case for both teams.
Right. Whoever, I'm sorry to interrupt you, whoever loses this game, we're going to have real questions about who they actually are.
Yes.
If Philadelphia loses, we're going to look back on Thursday night a week ago and say, man, that was about the Giants being awful. That was about the Giants potentially going to another top 3 pick. If Carolina loses this game, we're going to say, oh, okay. So it's back to the inconsistency. What is Carolina great at? I thought going into the year they would have a dominant rush defense. Remember, the first game of the year they played Dallas. And I said there's the one game all year that Dallas can't just say I'm going to run Zeke 30 times.
Right.
And by the way, they were really good rush defense in that game. Since then, they've been below league average. Like, the Panthers are a confusing team to me this year because 3-2 isn't shocking. But 3-2 when Cam hadn't really played a bad game yet. 3-2 when Christian McCaffrey is the guy that they thought he was going to be. 3-2 when the offensive line has played better than I thought. That they should be better than what they've been, given all those things. I never thought the issue with the Panthers would be an average defense, but that's where they're at right now. A lot of that's the red zone troubles. We'll see if they shore that up this weekend.
For years, the Panthers have gone the way Cam Newton goes in a game, and it just hasn't been the case this year. He's actually been pretty consistent.
I mean, in their 2 losses, he's got five touchdowns, 2 picks, a 98 rating. Like, he hasn't been the reason they've lost football games.
All right, got to take a break. Coming up, can LeBron James carry a young Lakers team? That's next. First things first.
Jim and Cam traveling to Philadelphia.